Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulillahi an-Nabiyhi al-Kareem wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. So, I'll just do a quick introduction. I won't waste a lot of time about. I just want to give a brief intro into my approach for the class, so that hopefully you will get an idea of how, whether or not this will be for you, and so on and so forth. So, and actually, you know what I'm going to do, Dawood? I'm going to print out really quickly. I'm going to print out a copy of each of these for myself. You don't have to worry about stapling them. Just when they all print out, you can grab them. Thank you. So obviously Arabic is, it's the language of revelation. It's the language that we would all like to, have some proficiency in, and yet it also is a language that many of us have probably encountered some difficulty over the years trying to, gain a foothold. And I think a lot of that has to do with just how Arabic has been designed as a curriculum to be taught for second language learners. So, in English, we're accustomed to hearing things like English as a second language, right? And so there's an entire curriculum and pedagogical approach to teaching English to non-native speakers, right? And yet, which is kind of interesting that Arabic, while being this kind of, universal language, in that, Islam is one of the major world religions. People on virtually every continent now will be interested in speaking the language, maybe not as a lingua franca, like not as a everyday language, but for devotional purposes. Obviously, people are going to want to be able to speak the Arabic language. And so I try to take some of my own personal experience in studying Arabic over the last almost 35 years, and trying to reach back into how did because I learned a couple languages when I was very young, besides English, and so I took that experience. Although in the beginning it was mainly very, just sort of intuitive. I didn't really think about how it got done. But I wanted to take some of that and say, okay, how can we tackle this issue of Muslims from very disparate backgrounds? I mean, we can maybe just do a quick introduction, say our name and where we're originally from to get an idea. So we'll start. And so you, as a native language, you would speak. Now also in iPhone, we only speak Burmese. Right. And then. Yes. Because he will pick up English at school. Yes, exactly. Right. Right. And we know, right, there are a lot of Muslims in Burma. And so anywhere Muslims go, they're going to have an interest in wanting to learn the Quran, right? This is kind of by default makes sense, right? So originally from Burma, but as you said, I think you said even as a child though, like you were taught by your parents. In the mid-teens. In your mid-teens, right, yeah. So it's Arabic classes for them to learn how to read the Quran. Right. And in fact, like yesterday, we finished the whole book at the yes. And then after that, my working life, because I worked at the High Seas as a pensionary education officer for nearly 25 years. So that is put aside, so to speak, and then it got rusted. So sure. A lot of the alphabets I know, and then now if I open the Quran or any ayat or anything, I can still pick up some, but some characters are a bit difficult for me to. Sure. Okay. Well, inshallah, we'll try to scrape off some of the rust, inshallah. And so, even though I have an English translation of the Quran, yeah, but I would also want to read it in Arabic. And as we'll see, there is a big difference in even though some people say, well, if you are not a native speaker and you learn Arabic, well, you're just doing translation inside your head. Well, I mean, I suppose that's, if you really want to boil it down, I mean, that might be one way to look at it. But undoubtedly, learning Arabic and learning some of the grammar and the deeper things behind the words and the meanings will go beyond translation. Because with translation, right, if I pick up whatever, if this is the Quran and I'm reading whoever translated this, I don't have an option to interpret these words, right, really in any different way. And as you'll progress, inshallah, in your studies, as you will see, even when you do go back and you look at English translation, and we had this instance yesterday, right, where there's a verse in Surah Al-An'am where Allah tells the Prophet ﷺ, he says, قُلْ أَيُّ شَيْءٍ أَكْبَرُ شَهَادَةً. You know, the English translation took it literally with the word shay'in, meaning thing, in which it would be translated literally as say, which thing is the best witness, or which thing is the greatest witness, which thing. And yet, the reply that Allah tells the Prophet ﷺ to say, قُلِ اللَّهِ, say it is Allah that is the best witness. The literal translation of shay'un to thing doesn't really fit the context. If you translate it literally, sure. But as you will see, and maybe the translator made a choice. You know what? I'm just going to stick to translating the words literally, and I'll leave it up to the discretion of the reader whether or not they take it or leave it. Whereas, if you have the ability, you would know in what we call like balagha or uslub, or in the stylistics of Arabic, there are contexts where the word shay'un indeed does mean a thing, like this cup is a thing, but there's context in which shay'un can mean men, or like who, or to mean a person. And so it's your study that will give you the tools and the intuition to know when to apply which style at the right time. Just as we would say when Allah says, nahnu, whenever Allah applies the plural of we understand that this does not literally mean that there is more than one Allah, that there's not more than one ilah, that there's not more than one God, and that what this is a stylistic way of Allah to speak to represent His power, His majesty, and so on. Whereas a literal translation, a Christian could take this and say, aha, this is proof for the Trinity because it's saying we, so this is one of three. Whereas we would say that indeed we believe that Allah does, obviously in His book He uses we, right, nahnu, or things in the first person plural, but none of this could be taken stylistically to imply something that would essentially render the meaning of shirk or some kind of polytheism. So that's the reason. So we'll go to Dawood. Go ahead, and I think you just met Rami, right?
Introduce myself?
Yeah.
All right. Dawood Imam, originally from Texas, so parts of my family from Spain, and I'm here in California.
That's all we need to know. That's it. You're here with the good weather. So have you any experience with learning Arabic before?
My background with Arabic is I get stuck when the letters are connected. Some of them are not recognizable for me, such as a jim or ha, and when they're connected, now I've lost the visualization of what that was.
Okay, all right.
But it's a matter of looking at it.
Sure. Okay. Rami?
My name is Rami. I'm born and raised here in Cali, but my family is from Syria. And my experience with Arabic stems strictly from just hearing it in my household. Never really took any classes. I tried learning recently, like the letters individually, and I had a similar problem with the connection of the letters. It's very confusing for me. But I'm hoping that by forcing myself to go through with this, I'll be able to learn a lot.
Inshallah. The newest member of the family?
I'm Rob. I'm originally from Wisconsin, recently moved to California from New Mexico. My experience with Arabic is over the last almost 2 years. I've done some self-study and worked things out on my own, so I'm looking forward to have the opportunity to get some good instruction and hopefully kind of take it to the next level of my understanding of the Quran.
Billah.
So
Alaykum as-Salām.
My name is Ishaq Nash Bain, born and raised in Southern California. Like many of you, my study of Arabic has, while it's been long, it's been very limited. My objective is, inshallah, being able to develop the skills where I can cultivate some type of literacy.
So that's actually a good last word to riff off of and continue. So the main objective of this class, inshallah, and of this kind of curricula that I try to develop is actually specifically that, to focus on literacy, because as Rami knows, and some of you probably know as well, there's a great variance in the way that Arabs speak the language today. You know, even if you're from Syria, people from Damascus will speak different from Idlib, from Halab, from like the different areas, let alone from the different areas, from Syrian to Palestinian to Lebanese. And then all of the area of Sham differs from the Khalij, right? Differs from the Gulf states, which differs tremendously from North Africa. Although I think North Africans get a bad rap that their Arabic is unintelligible. I was married to actually an Algerian woman, and after a period of time, when we first met and I first spoke to her family, it was extremely difficult to understand. But then, within a very short period, like within a month or two of overhearing her, talking on the phone with family back home, talking to her brothers or sisters, I was like, oh, that's that word. And then you begin to hone in, on the dialect. That being said, most of us, our hopes are to be able to primarily read the Quran. That's the first thing that Muslims want to do, is to be able to read the Quran. Secondly, they want to be able to understand the Quran. And so I do separate those two. So some of you talked about you have some difficulty reading letters together and so on, right? And so facility in reading, and then facility in comprehension. So those are the two big goals that we can put under the umbrella of literacy. And so several years ago, I had developed a program that I had called Taysīr Ta'allum al-Lughah al-ʿArabiyyah, facilitating the learning of the Arabic language, al-Dirāsah al-Taʿabbudiyyah, specifically for devotional studies. And so over the years, I've had a chance, this goes all the way back to when I lived in Michigan, back many, many, many years ago, when I first started teaching Arabic. I noticed that a lot of the books that people were using, while they were all fine books and they had the potential that you could, learn some very, rudimentary fundamentals of grammar and this or that, the problem is the ultimate goal that the people had, I want to be able to read the Quran and understand what it says. I would like to be able to read Riyadh al-Salihin. I would like to be able to read a book of hadith on the ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ. I might even want to be able to read like a book of fiqh or something like this and be able to understand it. And so while I'm kind of getting some basic nuts and bolts of like, this is a present tense verb and a past tense verb, however, I'm not connecting the dots to the meanings of the words that are contained in these sources, or what I would call now is like a data set, right? So I used to do a little bit of software programming back in the day and web development. And so you can think of things as data sets. And what I mean by that is the Quran is a book that has 114 chapters. And within the Quran itself, there's just only so many words, right? Because Revelation is over, there's 114 chapters, and therefore there's only 114 chapters to deal with. And even in the English translation, and if you've had any time reading the Quran, you will notice that it does kind of tend to repeat itself a lot. And that's actually beneficial in helping to dispel some of the myth of Arabic being unduly difficult. I think what makes it unduly difficult is I want to read A, and A is the Quran, but I'm using B, and B is the Medina series of books, or I don't know, what is it, al-Arabiyyah عندنا, or whatever these other books are, and they're telling me about going on a bus or going to the museum or doing all of these things in your daily life. But I'm trying to read this amazing book that Allah revealed to us about guidance, and so the vocabulary are not really matching up. A past tense verb is a past tense verb, whether you're talking about Surah Al-Kahf, or whether you're talking about going to the art museum and looking at paintings. A past tense verb is a past tense verb. But all of the things that would describe the things happening, let's put aside Surah Al-Kahf. Let's just simply say like even Surah At-Tin, like a very short half-page surah. The words there, and say 1 or 2 paragraphs about your visit to the art museum, there's not going to be a lot of overlap of meaning. There will be overlap of grammar, right? This is a sentence, this is a pronoun, this is an adjective, this is a verb. There'll be overlap in the nuts and bolts of grammar, but there won't be a lot of overlap in the meaning. So then I started to say, well, what if I actually sat down and looked at some of these books, because I think each of them has something good to contribute and have some good ideas, but they're just using the wrong source material to teach from. So what if I kind of start to go into the Quran and pick it apart and start to use the amthal, or use the examples from the Quran, and the amthal from the hadith, and the amthal from the books that we all really want to read, and break those down into even smaller bites and smaller little data sets, and mix them up and twist them around. And so I said, okay, let's do that. So that's essentially the fundamental approach that I have to this. So that's why you'll see in front of you today. So for instance, in some of the handouts, you'll see the Risala of Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani. This is a traditional text that we will read perhaps a little bit from today. What's funny about the Risala, and some of you may have even heard of this work. So the Risala gained great popularity. Imam Ibn Abi Zayd was one of the great imams of the Maliki school while the Muslims were in Andalus. And as he will read, or we will inshallah discover in the beginning, he talks about that education of the youth and of young Muslims in the fundamentals of Islam is of great importance. And so in order to achieve that objective, he wrote a book basically for kids or youth, kids and teens and people just coming into their Islam and the responsibilities placed upon them by Islam. So he wrote this book called the Risala. Over time, because it was such a great book and it gained enormous popularity, and many other people did commentaries on it, and so you'll hear the word sharh in its plural, shuruh. So many people made commentaries on the Risala, and so over the centuries it became super popular amongst Muslims. But over the time, it's somewhat like, I actually saw recently that there was like a almost 70 or 80 volume commentary on the Risala. I'm like, that's mashallah. For a book that was originally written for young minds, that they somehow extrapolated this out to 70 volumes, which I'm not saying you can't do, but like, wow. The reason why I have chosen the Risala as something as one of our source materials to read from is that, one, the contents of it are beneficial. It covers everything from the fundamentals of creed, what we will call i'tiqad or aqaid or aqidah. It covers some fundamentals of fiqh, right? It covers fundamentals of iman. But it was also written, generally speaking. Now you may say, look, man, it might be easy to you, but this all looks like, French to me, so to speak. It looks like an alien language. But overall, the language is not totally inaccessible. And he purposely uses a lot of words that you will find recycled in other places, either in the Quran or in other works. And that's the other part of my hope, is that I will, as we go through this class, try to thread together various sources that repeat each other in different ways. And I'll even be providing example sentences that will take many of the different words or verbs or whatnot and repackage them in new paragraphs for you to read. This is a very helpful technique, Because if you just read the paragraph and then go to the next thing and read the paragraph and go on and on and on, it becomes a monumental task to try to memorize each and every one of these words individually. And you just kind of like a house of cards, it kind of falls in on itself. So the other part is redundancy. To that, as I said, you can't learn Arabic in class. Learning Arabic will take place mostly outside of class. So you have to find a way to carve some time during the week to review the material that will help and aid you in that. And I made a video the other day, and I'll send it out to you guys again to review, that goes over kind of from a teaching point of view or a pedagogical point of view, some tips of how to make those things work. So the first thing that's the risala. The second one, some of you will see a work on the cover that says an-Nahwu al-ʿArabī. An-Nahwu al-ʿArabī. And so that's going to look like this one. Hopefully you can maybe read that one, an-Nahwu al-ʿArabī. And if you turn it over, the very first page is the word al-Muqaddimah. Al-Muqaddimah. So this work is written by Dr. Muhammad Fadl as-Samarra'i, and he has a whole series of books on Nahwu, which is the word for grammar, as well as in your packet you will see also as-Sarf. So he has as-Sarf al-Arabi. And so these will be two books, and I can show you the books afterward if anybody eventually is ever interested in adding them to your home library. Those will be the books that I will use in small sections for us to also learn some of the fundamentals of grammar. What I don't want anybody to do in this is to panic, like, oh my God, I can't do. If you tell yourself you can't, then you won't. That's almost bi'idhnihi ta'ala, that will make everything fall apart. I have designed the class in such a way that it's going to force you into the deep end of the water where your toes, you won't be able to feel the bottom. And it's designed like that on purpose. And so since we don't live in an environment where we hear Arabic all the time, we have to do the best that we can to create an immersion environment. And so that's why I'll try, like when we meet here, is to kind of give you a little shot in the arm to inoculate you for the week. And then I will also provide for you some additional resources. Before we leave, there's a page on the website that I will be updating all of the notes and all of the resources. There will be audio files for you to listen to that you can either listen to on the webpage or download and put on your phone or whatnot. And so all these things together are created so that you can, you have 20 minutes on your lunch break. Just listen to something, right? And don't worry initially, I didn't just listen to it. When I first began studying, I would just play lectures of scholars. And in the beginning, I might only thing I understood was Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulillah, and then 59 minutes later, Assalamu alaykum wa rahmatullah. And in between that, it was like, I heard Allah and Muhammad a lot, and I didn't understand anything else beside that. And that's okay. Over time, just let it you have to like marinate in it. Like you take a piece of meat and you marinate it for 5 minutes and put it on the grill, it doesn't catch the flavor. You put it in the fridge overnight, it catches more of the flavor. So don't worry too much about those things. So I'm going to go ahead and talk first a little bit, if you want to take your packet there, about the Nahwu al-Arabi. So the Nahwu al-Arabi, and the one that begins with the word al-Muqaddimah. Al-Muqaddimah. And I'm going to see if I can right, al-Muqaddimah. So I'm going to switch over to my whiteboard here so I can go and write for you guys. Who would like to take a crack at just reading the very first sentence there? Anybody? Okay, go ahead.
Al-Muqaddimah.
Right.
Bismillahi wal
والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والموابد فهذا كتاب النحو العربي الكلم ومعلبين ومعلم جمعت في بين القلم نحوية ومعني النحو إذ رأيت أن المكتبة النحوية تزال نفتقر إلى كتاب يجمع بيانهما.
Okay. So let's go to the very beginning. Bismillah. There is even a lesson for us here in Bismillah. Now, I'm not going to try to overwhelm you a whole lot with grammar rules, but at the same time, it's kind of also inevitable. So I'm going to say this to repeat again. Just let it kind of wash over you. So I'm also recording this. So if you don't get it the first time around, the 59th time around, it's okay. You can go back and you can listen or you can watch this all over again. So it's right here, the main thing is that you get your exposure and you get a little bit of muscle memory building. I think what happens is, and I've joked with Ishaq before, some of us have enough facility with the Arabic that when we look at it and when we're reading in our head, we think we sound like Luther Vandross, right? We're like flowing, right? And then all of a sudden, when we open our mouth and start speaking, it's like an avalanche of mistakes, like, and we trip and fall. And so why is there such a disconnect to being able to, wow, man, I sound good in my head. And then as soon as I start speaking, right, it's because we don't have the muscle memory. So like with anything else, riding a bike, speaking a language, whatever that it is, there's a muscle memory that has to be built up. So the other thing that you will do here is you will repeatedly embarrass yourself over and over and over. And alhamdulillah, this is good for the soul and it's good for the muscle memory, right? So B, the ba here in the beginning of Bismillah. We're going to learn a couple of important grammar rules. So this ba at the beginning of Bismillah, what is the ba here? Anybody remember? So in Arabic language, we have 3 types of words. What's one type of word that we have?
Ism.
Ism. Ism is what?
No.
Right? So ism is what we call a noun. And most of us remember our grammar school. It is a person, place, or thing. Another that we have is that we have another kind of, what other kind of word do we have in Arabic? We got noun. We have verbs. We call these fi'l. Fi'l. Right? And the other third major kind of word we have is what? Harf, right? And by harf, we don't mean just like a letter, right? But harf is what in English, we call this a particle. So harf. And so now, these are the three major food groups of which we can divide up Arabic into. Now, yes, there's many subgroups and things like that. So, this statement, Bismillah, can be broken up into B. We'll talk about what that is. Ism and Allah. We call these three together, what do we call this in Arabic? And if anybody can't read my handwriting, let me know. I'm also purposely going to try to break you slowly from the habit of tashkil, of the vowel markings, fatha, damma, kasra, shadda, right, sukun. Now, if I write it without it, but you hear me say it, by all means, go ahead and write it yourself, right? Just because I write that on the board without it, doesn't stop you from doing it yourself. That's fine for now because that helps to build your muscle memory. But I also want you to gain a kind of comfort of looking at words without having those vowel markings, right? So in Arabic, we call this the baslama. Baslama. My writing style, just some of you will know, I write ta'un marbuta. You guys are used to seeing this, right? I tend to write it like with a dash over like that. So just stylistically, if you're like, what did he just write? Just, that's what it is. So the little, looks like a ha, but it has two dots above it. Ta'un marbuta, right? That's what's used to usually signify something feminine. So anyway, Bismillah is a conjunction and a contraction of three words. B, Ism, and Allah. We call this the baslama, the baslamatun, the baslama. So baslama itself means Bismillah, right? And so that's why when you study tajweed, one of the first things that you learn, or one of the important things, is how do you deal with the Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim before every surah except for Surah At-Tawbah. And so there are rules in tajweed, like if you end one surah, how can you connect it to the next surah? How do you connect it to the baslama? Right? So when you hear somebody say baslama, baslama is like an acronym. Like the FBI is short for what? Federal Bureau of Investigations. Likewise, basmala is an acronym in Arabic, essentially for Bismillah or Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So you can think of it like that.
Does it follow any?
So, B is what we call harf jar. Harf al-jar. And any word that comes after this particle of harf jar is going to be majroor. And again, don't just right now, just let it flow. Don't worry too much about it. If you want to write it down, make a note, but it's okay. Now, normally when you see this word, what do you see? And don't be so, everybody's whispering. I'm getting old enough that you got to speak up. Right? Yeah, okay. I don't know why nobody will be beaten. This is not old school Quran in Morocco where you make a mistake and the dude hits you with a cane. This is not that. Nobody's going to receive any beatings, right? So how do you say this word? Allah, right? Allah. Now, if you were to say the last vowel on it, like if you want to say in the adhan, we say what? Allah, right? Allahu Akbar, right? So we're accustomed to hearing it like this. With that, and we sometimes see the little shadda above it, right? Allah or Allahu. But when we have a harf jar, like B, then for a thing to be majroor, right? So for a word or a noun to be, as we wrote, right, majroor, for a word to be majroor, the final letter takes, wow, gotta be able to write, takes a kasra, right? Because just as we have 3 types of words, we have 4 types of vowels. What are the 4 vowels in Arabic? And I'm going to put here in parentheses 5, but you'll see why. What are the 4 vowels in Arabic?
Fatha, kasra, dhamma.
Right. So we're used to seeing, let's imagine this is the line we're writing on. If we have a word like seen, we'll use seen for all of our examples here. If we have a fatha on our seen, what sound does fatha make? Ah. And that's when we see that like kind of slash above the letter, right? That makes an ah sound. So if our seen has a fatha, what sound would that make? Sa, right? Our second letter, as Robert said, is a kasra. What sound does the kasra make? You gotta speak up because also the AC is running, so. E. That goes below the line. It looks like a fatha, but below the line, right? It makes a E sound. Now we have the next. Dhamma. Dhamma, not dhamma, dhamma. And also, this is where I will be a real stickler about pronunciation. There are certain letters in the Arabic language that are unique to Arabic as a language, and it's a sound. And so a nickname, or one of the names that Arabs were known as Ibn al-Dad. Ibn means what? Right, the son of Ibn Fulan, right? The son of so-and-so, somebody's son, right? So another name for an Arab is Ibn al-Dad, the letter Dad, right? So you write the Dad like this, but you spell it in Arabic like Dad, right? Dad. Oh, no. Yeah, I got my dots. So Dad, right? Dad is not the same as Del. Del, right? Del is like this, And it is spelled in Arabic like that. Dal. Right? So Dod and Dal. These are very important. So like at the end of Surah Al-Fatiha, غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Not ظالين. People say that in colloquial speech, it's fine, but you cannot say that in prayer. When you're actually reciting Al-Fatiha in prayer, you cannot say ولا الضالين. This would render the prayer invalid. So Dod gives what sound? Ooh. And we write it like, it looks like a little vowel, right? That's what the voweling looks like a little vowel. And then our fourth vowel, which kind of isn't a vowel, it's like the vowel that isn't a vowel, is what?
Sukoon.
And that is usually written as a little circle. Sukoon. Sukoon means to come to a stop or to be silent, of which it is غير حركة, means that it's ضد حركة, it's the opposite of movement. حركة means movement. So we say sukoon is ضد حركة. It is the opposite of movement. So if we have a sukoon on our scene, what sound does it make? Exactly. It just makes the sound, as we would say in English, the consonant sound of that letter. So the consonant sound of dal is what? D. In sin, s. In qaf, and kaf, k. Right? Ironically, or not ironically, but say like as a trick question, if you have a sukoon on your hamza, what sound does it make? Don't hurt yourself, Robert. Sorry. He's like really exerting some effort, right? Right? If your alif has a hamza on it, what's the word in Arabic for cup? Kasa. Well, that's in, so the people of Sham in particular, especially Syria and Lebanon, they have some animosity towards the hamza and also towards the qaf. So they won't say, like in poetry we would say, Ya qalbi, oh my heart. But in Syria and Lebanon they say Ya albi. They say a instead of qaf. And they also eat the hamzas. And so instead of saying kas, they say kes, because they eat, they're so cool and relaxed, they don't even deal with the hamza. So if you have an alif, which normally can make any one of these sounds, a, I, u, but if it has a sukoon, it makes a sound. It's what we call in English a glottal stop. So like Allah talks about, in Jannah, people will have what? كَأْسًا دِحَاقًا. They will have a cup, a goblet that will constantly be filled up, and people will drink the tasneem and the other delights of paradise. So the word in Arabic for cup how? No, because it has a sukoon. So it's going to be kas, kas, kas. No, not qaf. Kas. No, you're doing kas. You have to do kas. Think of it like it's like popping and locking with your throat and your tongue. Ka's. It's like doing the old robot back in the day, right? No, you got to stop and then go. It's like how people in California come to a stop sign. They never really fully come to a stop. They stop but go, right? Ka's. That's closer, yeah. Ka's. But you're almost doing like a qaf. It's a kaf, right? It's not qaf, it's kaf. So, ka's. This is the Arabic word for cup. So anyway, we said 4 types of vowels. Now, I said we can almost, it's not really a vowel, but it is usually involved with vowelization and processing. And so I'll put the 5th one down here. What is this one? Shadda. This one we call. I like to write the 3 dots. I write it like this, just quicker, shorthand. So we call this shadda, right? So when you have your scene, it's written like that above it, right? So for instance, if you will look in your mushaf, you look in your Quran, one of Allah's names, we say Bismillahi. What's the second name? Ar-Rahman. What is that? Right? Ar-Rahman. Or Allah is At-Tawwab. At-Tawwab. Right? That pausing, it's a doubling of a sound. So At-Tawwab, there's a shadda. We call this shadda. Right? This is shadda, and ironically, there's a shadda in the word shadda.
Doubly?
Yeah, so you would say, Allah fa'alun lima yurid. Allah always does whatever He desires. Fa'al. So it's different than ka's. Ka's, there's no vowelization. There's no sound, it's just a pure stop and then going on, right? So you say ka and s, or imagine if we pronounce the tenween, right? We'll get into tenween, but we say the un on it. So the word as an infinitive noun would be ka-sun. So imagine we're just going to say ka and sun. And between ka and sun is a stop of no noise whatsoever. No noise at all. But as you know, as we say Ar-Rahman or Ar-Rahman, both of these are acceptable because some people, they cannot roll the R. If you cannot roll the R, you hold the sound, right? Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahman, as an exaggeration. At-Tawwab, like it's hard to with the T because but like Fa'al, it's not Fa'al. Fa'al is different than fa'al. Hopefully these little differences will, as you become more comfortable again with the muscle memory of speaking, they will become more apparent to your ear. Another example, and this is one I was definitely going to cover today. It's a real pet peeve of mine. When we hear the Prophet's name, what do we say? Yes. So we have guess what we have? In the first part of that prayer or dua that we make for him, alayhi salatu wasalam, we say sallallahu By the way, there's also a shadda in Allah's name, Allah. Right? It's not Allah, it's Allah. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallama. Or sallam, not sallim. Right? The vowels on this, I'll give it to you. It is sallama. what really makes my hair that I don't have in my head stand up is when I hear Muslims say, Sallallahu alayhi wa salam. It's not salam. وَسَلَامٌ عَلَى الْمُرْسَلِينَ وَسَلَامٌ عَلَى الْمُرْسَلِينَ, that is one thing. But to say the dua of sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, it is not salam, right? Salam is spelled like this. And sallama technically is what? It is a past tense verb. And so in Arabic, when you want to make dua for a person, like for instance, you take two common verbs, rahima and hafadha. What is rahima? Well, what is rahma? What is the word rahma? Mercy, right? Rahma, we know this word, mercy. See how the verb rahima and the noun rahma, see how they share a bunch of letters in common? Right? So the other common verb that you will know, hafadha. Hafadha. What is hafadha? Like when you, to preserve, or we say a person to also complete, like if they memorize all of the Quran, that they have made a what? We call them a hafiz. Hafiz, they have preserved the Quran what? In their memory. So if you were to use these verbs in the past tense, rahima or hafadha, about a person, what does the meaning mean? Because rahima means to have mercy. Technically, rahima means he was merciful, right? The literal meaning, past tense, he was merciful. But as a dua, right, the stylistic of making dua, when you say rahimahu Allah, we do this all the time. You hear the khatib and the khutbah mention somebody, a scholar, a sahabi, or whatever, and you hear somebody say rahimahu Allah. What are they saying? Like in English, what are they saying? May Allah have mercy. May. Right? May Allah have mercy on them. What is that? It's talaba. It's a request. It's a dua. Right? It's a request. So stylistically, if you take a past tense verb and have it applied to something or someone, and you do it as a dua, it's a request to Allah. So like for a person that has passed away, we would say what? Right, in the case of him or her, right? If it's a man, if it's masculine, we would say what? Who. Right? We would say who. If it's her, it's ha. Ha. So rahimahu Allah. May Allah have mercy on him. Rahimaha Allah. May Allah have mercy on her. Hafadhahu Allah is what? We said hafadha means to preserve. Right. So like when you will also hear, maybe you're attending a lecture or something, and the speaker is talking about another scholar who's currently alive. And this is where, if you really want to make a faux pas, somebody is, right with you, and if you were to say in Arabic, rahimahu Allah, I mean, linguistically, there's nothing wrong with this. But it's like, yeah, you about to get bumped off. It's like a mafia hit. Like, hey, Sheikh Fulan, rahimahullah. Like, he's still here. What are you doing, right? So for the deceased, we use rahima. And for the living, we use hafadha as a dua.
So the past tense verb applied to a person in the form of a dua basically equates to a request.
Yes.
Outside of that, right? If you're not, so maybe the question is that, does it always result in like a dua?
No, because if we look at our dua that we make for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when we hear his name, let's take the first verb, salla. Salla as a verb means what? What do we do 5 times a day? We pray. We make salah, as we sometimes say in English, but we pray. So the literal meaning of salla is he prayed. That's the literal meaning. If I just put salla, if we came into the masjid and you pointed at somebody, let's say Rob was over sitting in the corner and you say, Salla Rob? Naam, Salla. If you ask me, did Rob pray? Naam, Salla. Yes, he prayed. That's the literal meaning of Salla. But as we said, when the condition is just from a jumla, from just a statement, to being a dua, then it has a different contextual meaning. Also because sallallahu, does Allah make salah? Are you sure about that? Inna Allaha wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi. Man, what kind of class of munafiqs is this? Right? Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran that He and His angels make salah on the Prophet. Inna Allaha wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi. So does this mean that in every single context, salah is He did the prayer? Or does, depending on who is doing the action has a different meaning? When Allah does salah, because what are the arkan of salah? What are the pillars of salah? Tahara, right? You have to be in a state of purity. You have to be facing the qibla. You have to be sane. You have to make takbir. You have to stand, right? You have to stand. I mean, if a person can't stand due to an illness or condition, that's separate, but it's still considered like one of the fundamental aspects. Is that what Allah does? Does Allah face the qibla? Does Allah go make wudu? Can Allah be in a state? Because His name is what? At-Tahir. Right? Allah is the one who is pure. So Allah doesn't ever become impure. So Allah doesn't make wudu. So the salah for Allah is obviously mukhtalifa min salawat makhluqatihi. The salah of Allah is completely different than the salah of His creation. Though in the sentence, Allah does say, Inna Allaha wa malaikatuhu. Allah and His angels make a salah. This also shows that the salah of the angels is also not like our salah. Even though Jibreel, alayhi salatu salam, came and taught the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, taught him his Islam, taught him the Quran, taught him how to pray, on and on and on. But when Allah talks about the angels as a collective, they also make salah upon the Prophet. But it is not like our salah. So this is the important thing, is to understand a word can be used, whether it be a noun, a verb, right? A word can be employed in one context, but does not have the same meaning depending on the actor, right? So the subject, if the subject of the sentence is Allah, and of course the one that we're trying to placate, the one that we're trying to make dua to as Allah, that He will make His salah upon the Prophet, then the actor is totally different than when we, in our make salah, it's totally different. So salah is, though, a past tense verb. But when it is a dua, it is talaba. It is a request. Likewise, sallama. Sallama, that's why it's not salam. What kind of word is salam? We said there's three types of words in the Arabic language. Ism, fi'l, harf. Exactly. Salam is fi'l. That's a verb?
Silent.
No, I'm saying, what kind of word is this? What kind of word is salam? As-salamu alaykum. Salam. What kind of word out of these three? Is it a noun, a verb, or a particle? Is it an ism, fi'l, harf? It's a noun. It's a noun. This is a verb, just like this. And we said what? In a dua, past tense verb takes on the meaning of dua. Sallama. Not salam or sallim. Sallim, if you were to change this last, if you were to change that last vowel from sallama to, number one, there's no sallami, right? But if you were to say sallim, sallim is actually amr. It's a command. Like in Arabic, you hear, like, you ever have two Arabs arguing and one wants to kind of get the upper hand, he will say, Salli ala nabi. Like you're making your point and then he'll just interrupt you because, like you don't want to show yourself being like such an unpious person that if he says, say salawat upon the Prophet, right? Salli ala nabi. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And then he goes, it's like, wait, you're cheating now. You're cheating, right? This is like this is the way that the Arabs will argue with you, right? Or if you really want to shut somebody down and say, Akhi, salli wa sallam ala nabi. Salli wa sallim. Because you're now giving him a command. You're telling him to say sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Right? So use that little trick next time you see somebody asking, hey, akhi, ukhti. Right? Salli wa sallam ala nabi. Right? And so that is a dua, right? That is a dua. So going back to this is how it works, right? Bi ism Allah. Bi is a harf jar. What is it? It shows possession. Some type of possession or ownership is going on. When you have harf jar, something is getting possessed by something else, and therefore the most common letter, there will be exceptions as we learn, but we'll learn the rule now. The rule is the letter that is being governed or possessed or owned will take a kasra at the end. That's why we normally say Allah, but bi ismillah, right? Bismillah, right? Bismillahi, Bismi Allahi, right? Bismillahi, all because of that first ba. Now, don't try to cram all of this in your head. I want you to know that there's reasons why we're saying Bismillahi and not Bismillahi or Bismilluhi. Like it's not just there because, well, that's just what everybody says. No, there are rules that are going on here. And you will see in other areas that rule will be repeated. And that's when you start to see the patterns of repetition. Then all of it, alhamdulillah, will eventually come and it'll make things easier for you. So, Bismillah is also, and this will be, and then we'll go back to reading. I don't want to overwhelm you too much. This is what we call an idafa, or a conjunction. What is conjunction? Conjunction, junction, what's your function? Hooking up. Everybody else, if you don't remember the song, it's an old school.
Two nouns,
Two or
more.
more nouns, right? So there's a certain style of conjunction in Arabic that you can take two or more nouns and make a conjunction, right? This is called an idafa. I'm not going to go really deep into it. I just want you just hear the word, right? So the first part is the harf of B, and then ism, and then Allah. Ism, you'll notice, ism, in Arabic, how do we say the word like the, or to declare something being definitive over, right. So, like if I have the word, does everybody know what the word kitab means? Book, right, okay. So we have the word kitab, right? What would be the literal meaning of the word kitab? A book, right? A book. A book is different than the book, right? If you want to say the book, what do we say? Right, exactly. Right? This is how you make something definitive or definite, right? So, هذا كتاب هذا الكتاب أو هذا هو الكتاب, right? هذا كتاب, this is a book. If I say to you, هذا كتاب, if I just walked up to you and you didn't know me, I walk up to you off of the street and I say, Clarence, هذا كتاب. Clarence, this is a book. What would you do? Or what would be your response to that? Or, okay, it's...
And?
Yeah, exactly. And I need some more information, right? It's a book. Great. So what? Why? Why are you telling me this? What kind of book? What am I supposed to do? Like, you need additional information for this to make any sense. But if I said, هذا هو الكتاب, this is the book. It still needs a bit more information, but now at least, okay, all right, I know that at least we're talking about the book in my hand or something. How does Allah begin Surah Al-Baqarah? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alif Lam Mim, Dhalikal Kitab, Dhalikal Kitab. This is Dhalika Kitabun La Rayba Fi. If Allah said, this is a book, and there's no doubt about it, be like, well, how can I, wait a minute, you said it's a book. Well, that could be a book of, amongst a whole bunch of other books. How can there be no doubt about it if it's just a book? But ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. This is the book of which there are no doubts about. Right? So in Arabic, by adding the alif and lam to a noun, we make it definitive. So in conjunctions, the very first noun in a conjunction is always indefinite. The second and subsequent nouns can either be definite or indefinite, depending on what you're saying. Right? So if I said, for instance, Kitabu Masjid versus Kitabul Masjid, the meaning would be a book of a masjid. So this is a book of a masjid somewhere, anywhere in the universe. Super indefinite. But if I said Kitab al-Masjid, well, this book belongs to some specific masjid, right? The book of the masjid, right? This belongs to some, I still don't know maybe where that masjid is, but I know that this book only belongs to one masjid. Doesn't belong to every single masjid. Because if I said Kitab al-Masjid, a book of a masjid, like that's so, indefinite, it's very confusing. So you can have conjunctions that have two types, definite and indefinite. What we have in Bismillah, right, I think I'm going to need to flip my board around here. So what we have in Bismillah, as we said, what? It equals B plus ism plus Allah. Is there any alif and lam on the word ism in the middle there?
No.
No, right? So what we have is an indefinite noun. However, is Allah a noun, a verb, or a particle? It's ism. It's just a definite one, right? Allah is not a verb. The name Allah is not a verb because it's a name, right? And so what we have is a noun and a noun. Putting these together, you can even just say, right, you can even leave out the B for now. Just say is, and we'll put a dhamma this time, ismullahi. What does just ismullahi mean?
Name of Allah. Name of Allah.
Not name, but the name of Allah. And I'll show you why. So ism has a couple of different, just context matters. So in the context of grammar, ism equals what we said? A noun. But in the context of kalam or speech, in the context of speech, what does ism mean? Ismi Marc. Name. Exactly, right. This is another example of how context is extremely important. If we start reading from Dr. As-Samarra'i's book on Nahu, on grammar, and he starts talking about ism, well, he's probably not talking about somebody's name, he's probably talking about nouns. But if we're reading in a book of Aqidah, or we're reading the Quran, is the Quran a book of grammar? It's hudan lil muttaqin, right? It's guidance for the people of taqwa. So 9 times out of 10, any time Allah invokes the word ism, and by the way, what is the plural of ism? Asma. Asma. So as we would say, right? Jam'u ismi asma. The plural of ism is asma. So this is one I definitely do want you to try to remember. When I use the word jama', it's a grammatical term to mean plural. So such and such is the plural of such and such. So if I say ism, right? If I say, for instance, asma, huwa jama'u ism. Asma, huwa jama' ism. That means what asma, the word asma is the plural of the word ism. So ism is obviously a singular noun because there's no alif and lam before it. But Allah is what? Allah is alif and lam plus ilah, the God, right? So if you wanted to say God or deity in Arabic, how would you write that in Arabic? You would write what? Ilah. As Allah says in the Quran, wa ilahukum ilahun wahid. Your God is one God. Right? So ilah means one God, singular. putting the alif and lam, we're going to drop that alif, plug it together, and what we get is Allah. So the first lam is from alif and lam. The second lam is from ilah, and then we keep the ha. That's how you get the word Allah. The point is, ism is a singular noun. Then it conjoins or runs right up against a definitive or definite noun, right? Allah. So, Ismullah, the name of Allah. The name of Allah. And where do this whole conjunction, right? The name of Allah. This is what we will call a conjunction. Where does the come from? Does it come from the first or the second noun? Where is the in the sentence? It's on the alif and lam of Allah. So the other part that I'm showing you this, get out of the habit of wanting to do word for word in order translation in your head. That's going to really tie you up, right? Because the word the in this phrase is actually towards the end of it. And we take it from the alif and lam on Allah. But when we write it in English, we cannot write name of the Allah, right? Name of the God. I mean, if you say name of the God in English, you will sound like the very first version of ChatGPT. Now ChatGPT is actually much better. You will sound like Google Translate, right? It's going to sound weird. So when you go from one language to another, there's always little stylistic changes that you have to do to make this accommodation. A good example of this, in English, if I want to say, David and I went to the store, how do I say that? I say, David and I went to the store, right? So David and I went to the store. If I wanted to say the same sentence in Arabic, I would have to say what? Right? It's right. Dhahabtu, which is like saying I. So in Arabic, we would actually say, I went and David to the store, right? If I say that in English, I and Clarence went to the store, you know what I said, but you would also go, that's not right. That is not grammatically correct, right? You would know that that is not the case. So my point is that in Arabic, we would have to write ذهبت وداود أو ذهبت وكلارنس إلى السوق, right? I have to put myself first, then whoever else I'm going with, and then da 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 da, right? So when you want to bring that into English, there's a little bit of changing around because the word order that's just arbitrary. In Arabic, the first person and then the others go first, whereas in English, the other people, then you come, right? So Ishaq and I went to the masjid, ذهبت وإسحاق إلى المسجد, right? That's just how it works. So the reason why we say in the name of Allah, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, and then in English, in the name of Allah, is because we have to change the order to accommodate what's normative in the English language. This is just how it works. All right, we got a little bit left. Let's actually try, we'll go to Ishaq. Let's go back to that first sentence that we had in al-Nahu al-Arabi. I want everybody to have a chance just to read through this. So we'll go back where it says al-Muqaddimah, and then Ishaq, and then we'll just go down the line.
al-Muqaddimah
المقدمة.
مقدمة. بسم الله. بسم الله.
بسم الله.
بسم الله. والحمد لله. والحمد لله. الحمد لله.
والحمد لله.
والحمد والحمد لله والصلاة.
Not wal, but sad is a sun letter. والصلاة. Right? Do we, if not, really quick, sun and moon letters. If you don't know it, just look it up when you go home. There are some letters, when they take the alif and lam, some will have to take the shadda and some not. So like al-kitab, no, it's one of the moon letters, so there's no shadda. But sad is a sun letter, so when you attach it to the alif and lam, right, you have to say as-salatu, as-salatu.
Bismillah. Bismillah.
والحمد لله.
والحمد لله. والصلاة.
والصلاة.
والصلاة. والصلاة.
No, where are you saying? There's no salat. Bismillah. والحمد لله. والصلاة. Right? The harf jar, or the particle at the beginning of B, it only applies to Allah. Only applies to ism Allah. So Bismillah. Walhamdu lillahi. I don't want to overwhelm you guys with too much at once, but the lillah, it's not Allahi, but lillahi. The li in lillahi is also another particle. It's also another particle of possession, like bi. So Bismillahi, alhamdulillah. We said it means possession. So that's why we say in English, alhamdulillah means what? All praise is due, or all praise belongs to Allah. He owns it, He possesses it, right? That comes from the meaning of the li in lillahi. It's harf jar. It demonstrates possession. So, Bismillahi.
Bismillah. Bismillah. Walhamdulillah. والصلاة.
Two.
والصلاة. والسلام. على رسول الله.
Ar-Rasul lillahi. Make a note on your paper. Ala is also harf jar. It's also a particle. Now, up until this point, we dealt with B, which is just one letter only, and li as one letter. But even though ala, if you look at ala, it's what? Ayn, lam, alif, maqsura. There's three letters there technically, but grammatically, we still call it a harf. We still call it a particle. And it is specifically harf jar. It's the particle of possession that makes the word that's governed by it, that comes after it, what? Take a kasra. So, ala rasulillahi, ala rasuli, not al-rasulu or ala rasula, right? Ala rasuli. So start from wassalatu wassalamu.
والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى علي.
Look, there's a med, alihi, because again we have ala's harf jar. It makes the word that comes after it, the final letter has to take a e sound, the kasra. So that's why we have rasuli and alihi. Why? Because there's a ala that comes before it that governs those words. Wa ala alihi.
وعلى آله وصحاب
Sah.
صح
صحبه. 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 Now why is it صحبه and not صحبه? Right, this is another important one. Right, really quick, just because if you can start to put some of these grammar rules together, and when you go home review, right? So in the beginning, we have what? Bismillah. We have Bismillah with our harf. Alhamdu lillahi harf. والصلاة والسلام, right? Ala, which is we said harf. Rasuli, right? Rasulillahi. Wa, and this is going to be important. Wa ala alihi. So we have, right, harf again, the ala, wa ala alihi. But now we get what? Wa sahbihi. Why is it sahbihi? Why do we have bihi? There's no ala, there's no harf. Aha, there is one. And for this occasion, I get to use my red marker. Every teacher loves to get out the red marker. What is this wow here? Normally, wow carries what meaning? And. And it does mean and here, but it carries a second meaning, or rather a second implication as well. This is what we call wow atif. Wow atif. The wow of connection or of relation. And so what that wow here, right, is going to connect us back to that ala. So it's going to not only carry the sentence on, right, in the name of Allah, right, in the name of Allah, all praise belongs to Allah, and prayers and blessings upon the Messenger of Allah and upon his family and his companions. It's carrying what? The ala on his companions and upon his family and upon his companions. In Arabic, we don't like to, in sentences, keep having to use the harf over and over and over again. So it's like, وَعَلَى آلِهِ وَعَلَى صَحْبِهِ وَعَلَى صَحَابَتِهِ وَعَلَى. To keep saying ala, and over, stylistically in Arabic is a little clumsy. We don't like to do this. So what we like to do is mention the harf one time and then use the wow that will also carry that meaning and that grammatical rule with it. The grammatical rule of the harf says what? The noun that comes after has to have what at the end? The kasra, the E sound. So that's why if we look, it's what? وَالصَّلَاةُ وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَى رَسُولِ اللَّهِ وَعَلَى آلِهِ وَصَحْبِهِ وَمَنْ وَالَاهُ وَبَعَدُ. So the wa and sahbihi, the wa and sahbihi is going to carry the meaning of the ala over, and that's why sahbihi is going to take those kasra. So what is the word for the name of the companions of the Prophet in Arabic? Sahaba. Sorry, I have to write sideways, so hopefully you can read my handwriting. If I want the jama' means what? plural. If I want the jama' of sahaba, I'll try to, right? What is that? صحبة 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 جمع صحابة. Actually, in many ways, Sahaba is also a plural, technically, right? I know it's going to bake your brains. So now what we have is jam'u jama', the plural of a plural. Because what is the singular? If I want to talk about Abu Bakr, huwa blank 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 Rasulullah, I would say like Abu Bakr huwa, he is what? Sahibu an-Nabi. Abu Bakr, he is the companion of the Prophet. So sahib is the singular. Like that's the singular. This is a plural, and this is another plural. What's another plural actually? Have you heard of ashab? Because Allah talks about like ashabul kahf, ashabul jannah, right? So another plural is the word ashab. I'm sorry, I'm writing horrible there. Ashab. So we have the singular sahib, we have sahaba, ashab, and sahb. Right? So from one singular sahib, we have potentially 3 other plurals. Now, we won't go into today what is the difference between all of those, but that's why you will find sometimes they will say, وعلى آله وعلى صحابته وعلى أصحابه وعلى صحبه, right? You will hear and see these different inflections. They will all generally, if they are a plural of sahib, they're all referring to the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? Okay, Dawood, let's try the second paragraph beginning with, come on, man, fahada. You thought you was gonna sit it out, man, just because you made the tea, baby. Yeah, because we've already been through it. You've heard it, so we got to go to the next paragraph. Fa. Fahada. What's hadha? What the word hadha, right? What is the word hadha? I'm going to have to, or I'm just saying, the word hadha means what? This, right? The word hadha means this. Right? So hadha this. Have you heard of the word ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين. ذلك, or what some people may say ذلك, but ذلك you can get with hadha and you can get with ذلك. You can get with this and you can get with that. Right? So generally speaking, this and that. Hadha. If we use, there's different connectors in Arabic. We have like wow. We said wow in the general meaning. Wow means what? And. Right, good. Right. Forget about all the extra stuff, but just the general default meaning. And. What about fa? What is fa? فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ فهذه جهنم التي تكذب بها المجرمون.
Which?
No, hadha. So what happens with the word? Let's say let's pretend this is a sentence or a paragraph, and we've stated something. We've stated something in there. Now, we want to make a secondary statement that will either make a conclusion to that, add to it, follow up to it in some other kind of way. And so if we were to use wa in our second paragraph or statement, then it's like and. We went to Newport Beach. It's beautiful. It has all these beaches and da 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 da. And then we went to a restaurant and da da da. So I can use wow. But we went to Newport Beach. It's a beautiful sunny day. We walked for 20 miles and did whale watching. And boy, am I tired. Or it was one of the greatest days of my life. Or you really got to go check out Newport Beach. It's fantastic. Then I'm going to use fa. So we open up. Bismillah. Bismillahi walhamdulillahi wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walahu wa ba'du. In the name of Allah, all praise belongs to Allah, and may the prayers and blessings be upon the Messenger of Allah and upon his family and his companions and anyone who follows them. As for what follows, this book, right? So we've made this like beautiful introduction, doing it for God's sake, then stating that all praise belongs to him, and then sending some prayers upon the Prophet and upon his noble family, his righteous companions, and the people of taqwa, and such and such and such. With all that being said, this book, right, it's a way to transition. Right, so it's a kind of like a way to transition. So, فهذا كتاب. You good? Are you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. فهذا كتاب, and then in the parentheses, he's going to give us the name of the book. فهذا كتاب النحو. What kind of nahu? What is nahu? Right? Yeah. I mean, what's the point of learning grammatical terms if you don't even know the grammatical term for grammar, right? So we have nahu. Nahu means grammar. But not just any kind of grammar. Is this a book on nahu al-Yabani, Japanese grammar, nahu al-Asbani, Spanish grammar, or what does it say? Nahu al-ʿArabī, right? Because we have Arab. What is Arab? Arab is an Arab. But if we want to make a relational adjective, like Arabic, right? Then we have to say Arabi, and there's technically a shadda there. So, al-Nahwu al-Arabiyyu. Al-Nahwu al-Arabiyyu. This is a book, parentheses, its title is al-Nahwu al-Arabiyyu. أحكام, right? أحكام. Nanu. Nanu. So let me put this back on the board here, people can see. Right. So النحو al-ʿArabiyyah أحكام. What is أحكام?
Oh, the rules.
There you go. أحكام هو جمع أي كلمة. أحكام is the plural of what word? أحكام هو جمع أي كلمة.
Oh, speech.
No. جمع أحكام, the word أحكام هو جمع أي كلمة. Of what other word? It's the plural of what word? Right, because you have rulings. Right, حكم. حكم. Right? حكم. حكم is the singular. أحكام is the plural. حكم is a rule. أحكام is rulings. Right? Now what we have in the sentence, أحكام. It's going to take the double tanween. But the next word says what? وَمَعَانٍ. وَمَعَانٍ. Now I will get into later on why one has two dhammas and one has two kasras. This has to do with irregular words and weak vowels. It's way beyond anything we want to go into today. So right now you're just going to read it and we'll circle back to that. So it is أحكام ومعان. Have you ever heard of the word معنى? Right. معنى and then معان. معان جمع معنى. So معان is the plural of the word معنى. Ma'ana means meaning. Meaning. That's why in Arabic we can say, like, for instance, ma ma'ana hada. What does this mean? Ma ma'ana. You'll also hear Arabs say, just like we say a lot in English. What do Arabs always say? You've heard it. I know you've heard it 1,000 times. Yani. Now, technically, it does mean, well, it means, but it's a way in colloquial Arabic of going, it's like scratching your head. So if you really want to front like you know Arabic and you want to impress some native speakers when they start talking to you and they say, As-Salāmu alaykum akhi, kayfa haluka? Just delay them until you can conjure up the word. Right? It's also like a delay tactic. So if you don't know what the word is, like, oh man, what did he just say to me? I don't know. Yani, akhi, yani. Yani, akhi, yani. And then you just, in the back of your mind, you keep doing the search, right? Or get out your phone and, start doing the Google Translate or Chat GTP. Alhamdulillah, ana bi khair. I'm okay. So that's the way that you do the delay tactic, right? So ma'na means meaning, literally, and ma'anin is just its plural. So he says, هذا كتاب النحو العربي. This book, its title is what? Arabic grammar, أحكام, rulings, ومعان, and meanings. That is going to tell you an important approach about, since it's the title of the book, right? And in fact, if you just kind of go back to your first cover page, look at this fine little thing at the top. What does it say? Al-Nahwu al-Arabiyyu. Now, some of you may have a difficult time reading the more stylized ways of writing, but that's what it says right there in the front. Al-Nahwu al-Arabiyyu ahkamun wa ma'anin. And then kitab minhajiyun yajma'u بين الأحكام النحوية ومعاني النحو. Right? And then right. So I know it may take you some time before you'll be able to read like the more calligraphic way of writing, right? But then it says what? Ta'lif, written by الدكتور محمد فاضل السمراعي, right? جامعة شارقة, كلية الأدب, كلية الآداب, right? So his name is Dr. Muhammad Fadil As-Samarra'i from the University of Ash-Shariqa, which is in the UAE, right? Kulliya in the department of what? Kulliyatul Adab, in the department of literature, language studies, right? So هذا كتاب النحو العربي أحكام ومعان. What's the next word there? With the jim, right? Jama'tu. Jama'tu. Jama'tu means what? That I put together, that I compiled. Jama'tu fihi ba bayna, and then the word that we already know, right? Bayna al-ahkam. Al-ahkam. Now, this time he's not just saying a nahu, but he's making the word nahu into an adjective. So it's not just al-ahkam al-nahu, he's saying al-ahkam al-nahwiyya. Right? So it's going to be bayn al-ahkami al-nahwiyyati. So this time it's not just the rules of grammar, but grammatical rulings. Right? Because now we're making it into an adjective type phrase. So, what? بين الأحكام النحوية معاني and then what's the next word? It's just the word for grammar. النحو, right. So, ومعاني النحو.
We don't need to put out.
ومعاني النحو, right. Mm-hmm. إذ.
Say it again.
إذ. Like instead of saying إذا, like إذا جاء نصر الله, instead of إذا, it's just cut off the alif, just إذ. إذ. إذ رأيت, I saw. رأيت, I saw. إذ رأيت. رأيت أن المكتبة. أن المكتبة.
What's in the middle though?
That's أن.
Anna.
So I did this on purpose. Write a shadda over that noon. أن المكتبة, not just أن المكتبة, but أن المكتبة. It has a shadda over that noon. Right, so we're right here. And there's a little shadda, that little, right over the noon. Yeah. So أن المكتبة النحوية. What's مكتبة? What is a مكتبة? Yeah. So what would be a library that is nahwiya?
Oh, library of grammar.
A grammatical library. Because again, it's nahwiya, so it's an adjective. So you could think of grammatical. Right? أن المكتبة النحوية. Right? إذ رأيت, when I saw that, that's أن, المكتبة النحوية, the libraries of grammar or the grammatical libraries, لا تزال. تزال is interesting verb. So zala is a verb that is always used or almost always used with la before it. Right? What does la in Arabic mean?
No.
No, right? It usually either means no or to negate something, right? So la zala, what you can, the simple way to think of it, it means still. Like I still, or they still, or it still. I mean, it's continuing to be something or do something. It's to continue a state, right? So إذ رأيت أن المكتبة النحوية لا تزال, right? The grammatical library still. Now this is going to be
This is a hard one.
Yeah. Tough. Right. This is a hard one. Right. So يفتقر is from افتقر. افتقر. The verb افتقر. افتقر has 3 words in it. All right, has 3 letters in it that are really important. And this is what I mean. You also have to like put on your hat and look for things that stand out to help to give you hints of the meaning. So there's 3 letters in this word, right? The word on the page we have ya, fa, ta, qaf, ra. That's what yaftaqaru. Sorry, ta, fa, ta, qaf, ra. Taftaqaru or taftaqiru. So taftaqiru, there's 3 letters in there that if you were to extrapolate them, they will give you a hint of a base meaning. I'll give you a hint. We have taf, taqiru. Taf, taqiru. If we take out the ta, we have a fa. If we take out this other ta, we have a qaf. And then we have the ra. Fa, qaf, ra. Anybody know any word in Arabic with those 3 words in it? Fiqr, faqir, fuqara. You ever heard of somebody who's poor? Faqir. Fuqara. Right? The Quran talks about feeding the poor. Right? So the general meaning of anything that will have fa, qaf, and ra in that order, in its inflection, will generally be something related to being diminished, impoverished, right? Not wealthy. Now that can be in a literal meaning, or that can be in a figurative way. So he says, إِذْ رَأَيْتُ, and when I saw, أَنَّ الْمَكْتَبَةَ النَّحْوِيَّةَ, when I looked at, or when I saw the grammatical libraries. And what he means by this is not any particular library with books in it. He's just talking about worldwide, the state of things in terms of the collection of books on grammar. لا تزال تفتقر إلى كتاب. I saw that they still lacked. Iftaqara is related to what? We said impoverishment. So when a person is poor, right? When a person is faqir, what do they lack?
Substance.
Right, resources, money, food. They lack something. But in the same way, let's say, is there like a traditional Burmese dish that you guys make for Eid? What is it called?
We say mohinga.
Mohinga. Now, is there an ingredient in there that's special?
You go to cut fish.
Right. So let's say I invite you to my house and I say, okay, Clarence, I'm going to give my best shot here. I'm going to make mohinga, but I'm going to put, I don't know, I'm going to use chicken, or I'm going to use, beef knuckles or some weird ingredient, right? And like, what spices do you put in it?
Just ginger and
Okay, perfect. Zanjabil, you put ginger in it. Let's say I didn't have any ginger and I did everything. I put the fish, but I left out the ginger. And you tasted it, you would say, it's okay, but it lacks something, right? There's something missing in it. It's not that you can't eat it. It's not that it might not even not taste good, but it's lacking something. So when he says, إِذْ رَأَيْتُ أَنَّ الْمَكْتَبَةَ النَّحْوِيَّةَ, when I looked at the state of things as it relates to current books being published on grammar, the library of grammatical books, right? لَا تَزَالُ تَفْتَقِرُ, they still lacked. When we said la zala means still. It's still in a state of being something. It's still in a state of lacking. La tazalu taftaqiru ila kitabin. It's still lacking a book. Remember when we said before, kitab versus al-kitab? Kitab means what? Just a book. So he's saying like, all these books that have been published on grammar, they're great. They're fantastic, and you can learn grammar from them. But they still are kind of lacking something, in my opinion, in what he's saying, the author. In my opinion, I still feel it lacks something. Ila kitabin, and then what? Let's finish the last two words there, Dawood.
Let's see here. Taja.
Yaj.
Yaj.
Yeah, that's a yeah there.
Yaj. Yajma.
Yajma'u.
Yajma'u. She.
Baina.
Oh, B. Baina.
Hu.
Ma.
Bainahuma.
Baina.
So the word baina, right? Baina in Arabic, as a kind of almost like an adverb, baina means to be between. We call it like dharf makan. When you say, Dawood huwa baina Clarence wa Rami. Dawood jalis baina Clarence wa Rami. Dawood is sitting between Clarence and Rami. So the word baina, between. And so baina hum, I could say for instance, Rami huwa jalis bainahum. Rami is sitting in between them, like between all you guys. But baina huma, if you look on your page there, in the last word in the second paragraph, baina huma, huma, like whom in Arabic means they, right? So these are pronouns. We have pronouns, and I know this is a controversial word nowadays. So we have huwa. Oh boy, once this gets out on the internet, my career is over. All right, so we have huwa and hiya. Those are the actual pronouns. But in Arabic, we also have a suffix to attach to the ends of verbs or to the ends of nouns to be what we call like a pronoun suffix. So the suffix of huwa is just hu. And the suffix of hiya is ha. I won't go through all of them, but right now we have whom. Whom is the pronoun for what? They. Right. They. Yeah, this is definitely going to get me fired. Okay. They or them. I can't believe I've been tricked into doing this, right? So whom can be they or them.
That's our pronoun. Isn't it?
Yeah, and it is it's exactly the same, whether it's a standalone pronoun or as a suffix. Whereas Standalone pronoun, huwa. As a suffix, hu. Standalone pronoun, hiya. As a suffix, ha. So let's say we take our word that we know so far. The word you love so much. Ka's. Ka's means what? Great. How do I want to say his cup? Ka'suhu. Ka'suhu. Right, there's your pronoun. Ka'su. Who? What if I want to say her cup? Ka's. Ka'suha. What if I want to say their cup? Ka'su hum. Their cup. Now, in Arabic, we tend to, or not tend, we do, we classify plurals into, or let's say, how do you want to think of it? Plurality is classified into three categories. So let's call this plurality, right? First off, we have things that are just one. These are singular, right? So, ka's, a cup, one cup, right? Then we have things that are three or more. This is considered a plural, a legit plural. This is why we call this, what's the word for plural? Right? Jama', not jama', but jama'. There's a sukoon on the meme. So jama'. That's if you have three or more. But there's a special category for two. So we call this the dual, right? The dual pattern. And so in Arabic, you have huma with the alif there at the end. Instead of whom, we have huma. Huma means they, but two things or two people or whatnot. And so he says what? I'm looking at all these books on grammar. They're fantastic, but they still lack a little something. لا تزالوا تفتقروا إلى كتاب يجمع بينهما. That combine together both of these two things. What are the two things do you think he's talking about? Go back to the title of his book. Exactly. Ahkam wa ma'anin. So he's talking about grammar as a whole, but his approach is to highlight the rules of grammar and the meanings associated with those rulings. And so what he's saying is when I look at the library of books that have been written on grammar, they still lack something. لا تزالوا تفتقروا إلى كتاب. They lack one book. They lack I haven't seen a book yet that combines both of these together in one book. They're usually treated in separate books. Okay, Rami, let's start from فَمِنَ الْمَعْرُوفِ Ma'ruf. What is ma'ruf? Like Allah talks about things being ma'ruf, right? Sometimes Allah talks to being ma'ruf. The word arafa ya'arifu. Arafa means what? To know, right? It means to know. So ma'ruf means that which is known. So he says, فَمِنَ الْمَعْرُوفِ. Therefore, recognizably, or from what is known, right? That's generally the meaning that we can take from this, right? So he begins the statement with fa again, right? He's making another transition to talking about something. right? So here, the clue, and this is where you have to learn to read a little bit. Now, kataba, right, we have three letters there, ka, ta, and ba. If it were the verb kataba, it would mean he wrote. But what is the word that comes after it? An-nahu. And what did we say an-nahu is? Grammar. So it would be, well, generally speaking, he wrote grammar. Does that even sound like, that would sound weird, right? It doesn't sound quite right. So it's not going to be kataba. It's not going to be a verb. So let's presume that this is a noun. Well, there's only one way that this can be a noun because it has just three letters. The word kitab has an alif where in it? Exactly, after the ta. And so it can't be that, right? It's not going to be that. But what is the plural for kitab? Kutub. So now he says what? من المعروف أن كتب النحو أن كتب النحو, the books of grammar. So kutub with a dhamma on the first two letters, so ku and tu, kutub, this means, right, it means books, plural, books.
Is there a sukoon on the ba or is there a fatha on the ba?
Well, no, the ba because it's a regular noun, so it's going to take some type of vowel ending, but I haven't given that to you. So, but it's going to take a fatha because of anna. Again, that's more than what we will cover today because it'll be way too confusing to go into all that. But the reason why it has that is because of the anna. So it's going to be anna kutuba an-nahu. Anna kutuba an-nahu. Tu'ana, it's okay. Tu'ana, it's a verb. Tu'ana, right? Kull, what is kullu or kulla? Kullu means what? Each. Now, qul is the command to say, but kullu shay'in, right? Everything. It means every. Al-inaya, inaya, every concern, every care. B, right? That's also that same B is in Bismillah. B, al-ahkam, bil-ahkam. Al-ahkam al-nahwiyya. So as a noun, it's nahu. As an adjective, it's nahwi, and the feminine is nahwiyya. So hukum is the singular. So if you want to say just a grammatical rule, it would be hukum nahwi. And grammatical rulings, as a plural, is ahkam nahwiyya. Ahkam nahwiyya. وفي أثناء عرضها وفي أثناء عرضها للأحكام.
للأحكام.
Yep.
قد.
قد. Yep. Now this is a complicated verb. It's okay. تتعرض. تتعرض.
Is that a shoulda?
Yes, yes. So you can write that in there. And the ra in tata'arradu is a ra. So its base form is ta'arrada. And when conjugated to the present, tata'arradu. Now none of that even matters right now. I'm just trying to get you guys to read, to be able to get that muscle memory of reading the letters. It's okay. So قد تتعرض لمعاني, right? So ma'ana is the singular of meaning. Ma'ani is meanings, right? لمعاني بعض. بعض. So we have two words that sound similar in Arabic. There's بعد. بعد with a dal means like something to come after. وبعد ذلك. Right? Something means to come after. Ba'ada means after, but ba'da with a dad means some of. So you have like, for instance, kullu, that's like all of, and then ba'da means some of. Right? So it's going to be in this case, li ma'ani ba'di. Good. Yep. At-tarakib. النحوية. النحوية. Yep. وأما ما يخص معاني. Right? معاني. That's okay, yeah. النحوي. فقد أفرد. So in Arabic we have two words that we use for doctor. There's the classical tabib, but more commonly used today is duktur, which is just the phonetical doctor. So in Arabic we say ad-duktur, because dal is a sun letter, so it has to give shadda after alif lam. So we don't say al-doctor, but ad-duktur. So afrada ad-duktur. Fadil, right? This is name. Fadil. Ra'i. So his last name is a little tricky to pronounce. As-Sammarra'i. Yeah, As-Sammarra'i. Kitaban. Fihi. Right. So I'll read it through once just so you guys can, right? فمن المعروف أن كتب النحو تعنى كل العناية بالأحكام النحوية وفي أثناء عرضها للأحكام قد تتعرض لمعاني بعد التراكب النحوية وأما ما يخص معاني النحو فقد أفرد الدكتور فاضل السمرائي كتابا فيه. So what I will do, because it's already 1:30, and you guys have the look like you've been drugged through keyhole, is this is good enough to give you, I think, an impression, like how we'll do. And so I'll spend part of the time discussing, like we did, some of the vocab, some of the letters. And then part of it is just this, like just reading through, because we have to build up the muscle memory. So to help you with this, I'll give you the website, is I have already uploaded to our class here, the page for it, and you'll see it'll be under session 1. So all 3 of the PDFs that you'll need are to start with are there, which you already have, but in case you need it or you want to, if you're at work, you want to access it, you can download it again. And then I currently have the audio recording for your little handout for the Risala. There's an MP3 that's there that you can listen to the whole recording. And hopefully, maybe by tonight or tomorrow, I will have the audio for the muqaddimah of the intro to Dr. As-Samarra'i's Nahw al-Arabī. I will also record that as an audio file that you can listen to, so that way you can read along with it as well. I'm going to also provide you with an extra PDF that you can look at and a list of key vocabulary words. And so I'm going to provide those to you, but what I'm hoping that you will be able to do is, by also leaving out some, and you're free to look up on your own, is to try to figure out what those other words are and mean. And then when we meet next week, we will read again and we'll see how you guys are doing on your translation or on your understanding, your comprehension of it. And so my recommendation through the week would be to sit with your, sheet, listen to the MP3, and first just like play it and try to go with your eyes and read along. Now, if you guys think it would be helpful to have this available as a YouTube audio file where you can slow down the speaking speed in the beginning, let me know, and I'll just upload it to YouTube and I'll put it there as well. Because what's nice on YouTube, you can change the playback speed from full speed, 3/4, 1/2. Anything below that, you start to sound drunk. Right? So, but if it would help you in the beginning, then I'm happy to do that. I can just, upload the MP3s to YouTube and I'll put them there. So on our website, the URL that you guys can use on the website is
Is there an R on center?
Oh, sorry. So our website is just muslim.center. So if you go to muslim.center and then just type in the-Arabic-reader as one word, that'll take you to the page, which I will update every week as we go in the course. So that way you just go back to the same place and it'll be sectioned from week to week and session to session. I'll have the date there and everything. And so if you go to that, again, you'll always be able to download the PDFs again if you need to print them out at home or whatnot. It'll have all the audio files and any other supplemental material that's there that you guys will need for the class. That's where inshallah, that's where it'll be at. Right, so for those who are online, see if I...
Muslim.center.
Yeah. So it's muslim.center, not .com. So muslim.center/the-Arabic-reader, all one word. And that will take you to the page. You can bookmark it. I'll also, don't worry, if you don't have to write, I'll also send this out to the WhatsApp group so that if you missed it or whatnot. Are all you guys in the WhatsApp group? You're not? And you're not? So if you want to, before you leave, are you on WhatsApp? Okay, I already have your number, so I can just add you to it, and then, you don't have WhatsApp. Okay, so if you just, or even on the website, if you go to the Middle Ground website, if you just go to muslim.center, you'll scroll down, there's a link right there in the front that says the Arabic Reader. If you click on that, it'll take you to the page. Yeah, yes.
So I have a question, and I think this might be I don't know if this is what you're wanting us to avoid, right? So part of reading, right? Like part of my reading, trying to figure this out, without the tashkil there, right, is trying to identify, like you said earlier, identify certain patterns, right? And not just in regards to sarf, right, but just certain grammatical patterns, right? But without knowing those patterns, right, it's kind of hard to figure out. Like, so some of the stuff that we went over today, like when we went over the some of the things that we went over today, like we can identify not only those patterns, but even though it's not here, right, the vowel that should go with those words, right, and all that together gives us some kind of meaning.
Right.
So at this point, should I or should I not get called for that?
I would not. What you can do, and obviously everybody here is going to have difficulty reading without the vowel markings. That's why I'm going to give you guys the audio files to go with them. So if you want to sit and you have your PDF and you want to mark it as you go, that's fine.
Well, I'm talking about from the perspective of, as we're trying to read, identify certain grammatical patterns that will indicate to us, oh, this is
Yeah, I mean, I think those things will come in time. I think if you try to do that right now with all the other balls you're trying to juggle in the air, I think it'll probably be too much. The main thing is work on practice reading, right? That's why, in fact, all you have to do is just this one, the muqaddimah for the intro to his Nahw al-Arabi is like what, 2 pages, 3 pages, right? And so, to be honest, you can just work on like the first page. Like even if guys don't even get to page 2, page 3, like probably won't. If you guys can just page 1, if you can just work on, I don't know, it's like get it done and next week there's a quiz. No, if you can just practice this through the week, along with the listening, and then be curious. I mean, I'm kind of on purpose not trying to be too dictatorial. If anything, I'm just saying don't do this or don't do that in terms of don't confuse yourself. The first thing is like get the muscle memory going, get the chops going, be able to comfortably look and say, فَهَذَا كِتَابُ النَّحْوِ الْعَرَبِيِّ. Like just work on that and using the audio file as a mean. Okay, I have to listen to that. Did he say fatha? Did he say dhamma? And so when we come next week, we'll read through and we'll find out, well, did you get it right or not, right? And we'll continue to work through that. And then also, I will develop a few other companion things for you to read that will then, as I said, I'm going to provide like a little vocab list, but I'm only going to provide some of the words because I want you also to, the other thing I will do, I want you to learn on your own as well as just what I teach you. The other part I will do, so check back either today or tomorrow on this webpage. I'm going to put a few resources there for you guys to use in terms of dictionaries and whatnot. One thing I do want you guys to start doing as much as possible is to wean yourself away from an English-Arabic dictionary and start using an Arabic to Arabic dictionary. So if you look really quickly at your right? If you look really quickly at the one that says the Risala of Ibn Abi Zayd before we leave, right, before we wrap up, right? You'll notice at the bottom of that in the footnotes, I have some notes that are there. And those notes are mainly in Arabic, right? So if you're, for instance, if you go to the first page of Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani, right? If you go to the first page of that, if you go to the last paragraph on that page that begins وَنَبَّهُ بِآثَارِ, you get to the very first footnote, right? And then on the end of the line where it says al-Mursaleen al-Khirati, you get to the second footnote. And then the first, right? My point is, if you look at the footnotes, footnote 1, 2, and 3, they're all in Arabic. I'm going to do this on purpose to force you to engage with the Arabic. So if you look at the very last line of the paragraph that says, right, فَهَدَى مَنْ وَفَّقَهُ بِفَضْلِهِ, towards the end of it, the third footnote, it says what? Al-Muslim, أخو Muslim. لا يظلمه ولا يخذله أخرجه مسلم في صحيحه, and then it gives the right 2,563. The whole point is, I don't think that's too hard for you to probably reason out what it might be. Al-Muslim أخو Muslim. Well, number one, the statement, the al-Muslim, what we always say, ya akhi. Akh means Muslim. So this is referencing a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, what? Al-Muslim, akhu, al-Muslim. The Muslim is the brother and sister, right, of another Muslim. La yadlimuhu wa la yakhduluhu. I put the number, right, it says there, what it is, akhrajahu Muslim. So you're right, it's in Sahih Muslim. And I gave the number 2,563. You might have to do a little work, but that's okay. That's the whole point. So go ahead and look up the hadith online. Look it up in English. It's fine. That's fine. But I'm going to do little things to try to push you to start engaging and thinking in the Arabic as much as possible to eventually move away. And the reason why I'm giving you this footnote is because this word, khadalahu, you might say, well, man, I don't know what this word means. Well, the word is mentioned in a hadith from the Prophet ﷺ. That would be very easy to find, right? So I will give you a link to many online resources where it's easy to look up verses in the Quran, easy to look up the ahadith, right? Where you can look them up by number. Very, very easy for you to do. I'll give you a link to an Arabic to Arabic dictionary that you might not be able to use quite yet, because I'm also going to give you a link to an English to Arabic dictionary, but I'm going to slowly try to guide you so that you start. The whole point, why do I want you to have an Arabic to Arabic dictionary? Because I want you to expand your vocabulary, right? And so by learning what words mean in Arabic from Arabic sources, then you expand your vocab, right? And that's also extremely helpful to becoming, right, more literate. So I know it's, we definitely need to go ahead and make Salat al-Dhuhr. So inshallah, let's go ahead and wrap up this session, and we'll see you inshallah next week. وَنَسَى اللَّهَ الْعَفُوَ وَالتَّوْفِيقِ. We ask Allah inshallah for forgiveness and also for success. فَهُوَ أَعْلَمْ مَا لَا نَعْلَمْ, for He knows what we do not know. Allahumma zidna ilman, O Allah, increase us in knowledge. وَصَلِّ وَسَلِّمْ وَبَارِكْ على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. جزاكم الله خيرا. Inshallah, if anybody needs to make wudu, you're more than welcome to use the kitchen unless you have to use the restroom, and we can just make Salatul Dhuhr before we leave so we won't be late, inshallah. And inshallah, we'll see you next week. Assalamu alaikum. Wa iyaakum.